10 underrated movie sequels that deserve a second chance from you. In this video, let us delve into the complicated world of sequels. Usually, the only time a sequel ever gets made is when the original movie is faced with grand success. While that is the strength of the sequel, it is also the biggest weakness. The bar is set too high, and more often than not, the expectations of the fans are not met with the sequel efforts. That is not to say that no sequel has ever been successful. There is a long history of movies like Terminator 2, the Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, Godfather II, and many others where the sequel surpassed the movie. But today, we bring you to a list of some iconic movie sequels that have paled before the predecessor, not because they were bad movies, but the audience expected something else, or they were bullied by critics as they couldn't understand the true intent of these sequels. Although these sequels did not exactly set the box office on fire, we feel they're criminally underrated and face much more flack than they deserve. Sit back and enjoy the video while you decide for yourself if these movies deserve a second chance. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Predator 2, 1990. You probably remember Predator, the iconic classic that involved a team of commandos being hunted by a horrific alien creature. The sequel marks the return of the Predator to Earth. This time, the hunting ground happens to be Los Angeles. Amidst a growing gang war and several murders, the police discover the murderer to be the fearsome extraterrestrial hunter. Can they stop the deadly creature from its mission? It is almost baffling that the movie did not make it to the favorite list of fans. Despite some skillful acting performances by the likes of Danny Glover, Gary Busey, and Ruben Blades, the film failed to shine with the audience. Obviously, it was disappointing that Arnold is not in the movie, but that was a different tale, which is set in a completely different environment, a lively city. The action scenes in the movie are far apart. The good stuff is saved for the last, and that's fair because the film is more of a thriller than full-blown 80s action movie. The urban setting of the movie takes a turn from the forested backdrop of the original film, which was really inventive. Also in Predator 2, we get to see the Yautja using a lot of new weapons, and he seems to be a bit more personality than the original film. There is a 3-minute scene that was deleted which dedicated to show how he was trying to cauterize his wounds using his own medikit of some sort, and we see him crying in pain. It was a remarkable scene that directly connects the audience with the creature. At times, all it takes for a movie to crash are some ignorant critics, and for this movie, that seems to be the case. Lethal Weapon 4, 1998. When the first Lethal Weapon movie came out in 1987, people were in awe of some spectacular performances by Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. The film narrated the story of two drastically different cops coming together and cracking a drug trafficking case. A fast forward to 1998, and we had Lethal Weapon 4. The duo was back, and the buddy cop theme was kept alive as they had to deal with the Chinese mafia trying to arrange a prison break for their former leaders. This movie catches them old as they find it out with the mercenaries on their tail. Despite the lack of popularity, many believe that this is probably one of the best movies in the series. Mel Gibson and Danny Glover recreate their magic, and their personalities have matured with time. They might have aged, but the action did not. Every fight scene is sure to have you stand up in your seats in anticipation. Besides the usual action, the comic angle has not been compromised either. This is the perfect wrap-up to an eventful series, and one could not have asked for better. Bringing in Jet Li in a Lethal Weapon movie was a badass idea. If you have not laid your eyes upon this one, it is high time you did.
Which I will personally authorize once your mission is completed. A man is too dumb to survive LA.
Escape from LA, 1996. Sometimes the box office performance is hardly a determiner of the success of a movie. Escape from LA, which was a fantastic sequel to Escape from New York, and it may have bombed with commercial success, but we beg to differ regarding the magic of this movie. The original movie handled the plot of crime-ridden futuristic society where an ex-soldier and current prisoner were assigned the task of saving the president of the country. The movie was set in New York, a place that was supposedly a crime hub. For the movie Escape from LA, the backdrop is changed to LA. This film shows LA as an island where the worst prisoners are deported. The ex-soldier, Snake Plissken, is at the helm of things yet again, as he must bring in a doomsday device from this godforsaken island. One of the strong points for this movie was the amazing acting squad consisting of Kurt Russell, Steve Buscemi, Stacy Keach, Pam Grier, and Cliff Robertson. John Carpenter does no wrong with his immaculate direction, and all of his fan-favorite signature directorial moves are present in this film. The movie offers you with oodles of fun, and is probably among those films that people claim to hate but secretly love. You could say that Escape from LA is a darker replica of the original, and the finesse of storytelling is sure to have your attention throughout the movie. Kurt Russell is charismatic as Snake Plissken, and it has some of the coolest but campy action scenes you'll ever see. As a bonus, you also have Bruce Campbell in the movie as a psycho surgeon. He looks super creepy, and if you don't look closely, you might not even recognize him. It's an extremely fun scene. Conan the Destroyer, 1984. After the success of Conan the Barbarian and the rise to stardom for Arnold Schwarzenegger, a sequel was given. Conan the Destroyer is as good as it could have been, although some uptight critics would beg to differ. The first Conan movie saw the rise of a barbarian boy who fought for revenge for his parents' death. In this sequel, Conan is tested by Queen Taramis, and once she is satisfied, she tells him to go on a quest. The mission this time is to accompany her niece to restore the jeweled horn of the god Dagoth. The movie offers some great entertainment, and Arnold is at his very best as Conan. Yes, it's not as good as the first one, we agree on that, but it is not the worst sequel ever in cinema, like most of the purists claim. Unlike the first Conan movie, there is some added humor to lighten up the serious situations at times. The Hyborian universe of Robert E. Howard has a lot of great characters, and the creators of this movie tried to include different versions of them in this film. It was refreshing to see all these amazing personalities reflecting the massiveness of the Conanverse. The music in this movie deserves a special mention as it successfully uplifts the magic element in this film. Conan the Destroyer does not have a deep and complicated plot, but it never was meant to. Watch it for what it is, and you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Get out of here, Blue.
Yes, come with me, Your Highness.
You.
Hellboy II: The Golden Army, 2008. The first Hellboy movie was an exceptionally good movie, and every scene of it felt like we were reading a live-action comic book on our theater screens. In the sequel of this amazing movie, Hellboy II: The Golden Army, we see Hellboy take on the evil Prince Nuada. The prince plans to bring back the Golden Army to life. With the help of his army, he would conquer the world. All that stands between him and the success is Hellboy and his team. Can they stop his evil intentions? We would probably understand rocket science if we tried, but never will we grasp the reason behind the hate this movie gets. A cast rich with some wonderful actors like Ron Perlman, Selma Blair, and Doug Jones was never going to disappoint, and they don't. The action scenes are gripping, the effects are flawless, and every shot filmed in this movie appeared more confident than the original. All this just adds to the brilliant direction of Guillermo del Toro, which heightens the thrill of the viewers to a whole new level. You have a charismatic, powerful villain with a perfect technical detailing. The movie not only does well, but packs a punch above the first Hellboy movie. Del Toro and Ron Perlman did everything they can to stop the reboot, but the greedy studios were adamant. They didn't want to reduce their profits. Hence, Hellboy 3 was shut down. They got people for cheaper who created an average reboot, which fell flat on its face, and even though it was so much hype, neither the fans or the critics liked the movie. It was a tight slap on the face of the studio, but we are pretty sure they will make the same errors 1,000 times in the future as well. Gremlins 2: The New Batch, 1990. Remember the horrifying little monsters Gremlins? They are back now and they have been taken over by the high-tech skyscrapers. Now the corporate must take back control of the city, but can they? The original movie sheds light on the inception of the Gremlins. It all started when a young boy was given a unique creature that required a careful looking after. When the creature was accidentally exposed to water, the evolutions began and the end results were the horrifying Gremlins. The sequel does well to contain the plot and start off from where they had left off. If you have watched the first Gremlins movie, then you have probably admired the fun-filled action and horror infused to form a great entertainer. The sequel comes back to hit you harder because Joe Dante offers you a better written satire this time. The story brilliantly plays around with some modern obsessions that involve tearing down the old to develop new state-of-the-art complexes. There is a fine line when bizarre crosses over to brilliance, and the makers do just that with this film. Speaking of criminally underrated movies, this one would rank among the best in the lot. It is just beyond our imagination how come this amazing movie doesn't have a sequel yet.
Thus, a new future is born. A great future, eh?
Don't tell us, Duder. You programmed us. He's totally a robot. So are you, dude. Well, we're total metalheads.
Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, 1991. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey continues with this hilarious yet stunning film. They have to fight android doubles of themselves that are sent from the future by a tyrant who is bored out of their peaceful world. His goal is to eliminate the originals, and Bill and Ted must battle it out regardless of their stupidity. This story takes off right where the first one ended, as Bill and Ted build their historical presentation with a time machine. Everything you love from the first movie is here, and we've even gotten more crazy characters and outlandish narratives going on in this one. One of the first things that you'll notice about the movie is how very imaginative the story is. The only reason that this movie did poorly at the box office was probably that the release was a little delayed, and it felt like people had gotten over just how awesome the first Bill and Ted movie was. But as time passed on, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey attained cult classic status. The movie made decent money at the box office as well, but the studio's confidence was shaken with the earnings, and they didn't want to do a third one immediately. Alex Winter as Bill and Keanu Reeves as Ted delivers with some unforgettable performances. We would not go into the debate of whether or not it is better than the original, but it is definitely worth a watch. By the way, the third movie is going to release soon this year on August 14th, 2020. It's called Bill and Ted Face the Music. Party on, dudes.
Pull him. Pull the drone in. Let's cook!
Ghostbusters 2, 1989. Ghostbusters won over our hearts when it first came out. We were all intrigued by the adventures of the three parapsychology professors who hunt for paranormal activities and ghosts. The sequel keeps up with the entertainment as the plot only gets better. The Ghostbusters are shown to be plagued with various lawsuits and court orders. Suddenly, the problem with paranormal events recur, and it has to be the Ghostbusters to the rescue yet again. There is a river of ectoplasm, and a sorcerer is about to use it to accomplish his evil intentions. The best thing about this sequel was that all the main characters were back in action. You get the laughs, you have the spooks, and there is the suspense surrounding the turn of events. In short, you have a great sequel, and it would be wrong to compare the two classics. The same cast is back to deliver the goods as Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and the others manage to fascinate the fans yet again. The dynamic between Rick Moranis and Annie Potts is funny and entertaining. The best bits of the original are recycled, but we are sure you wouldn't mind. All the major cast was almost back to make Ghostbusters 3, even the posters were designed, but that project couldn't get out the production hell. But after a few decades later, we are going to get a sequel to Ghostbusters 2, which is kind of a reboot, with Ghostbusters Afterlife. It is going to release on March 5th, 2021.
Thank you for not smoking.
Robocop 2, 1990. The good Robocop battling the evil Robocop. That is pretty much the synopsis for Robocop 2. However, the presentation, the thrilling storyline, and the suspense-filled drama that ensues makes this movie a fantastic piece of entertainment. The original Robocop had a terminally wounded cop returning as a cyborg to fight crime. While the theme remains the same, the makers made situations more challenging for Robocop, with a more powerful villain this time around. Plus, we got to see him struggling with his human past. The extremely talented actors like Peter Weller, Nancy Allen, and Belinda Bauer come together to replicate the magic of the first Robocop movie. The sequel might not have struck gold with the critics, but it doesn't deserve the hate it gets. The plot goes right to the point, and you are treated to some incredible stunts, violence, and gore. The gang that Robocop takes on this time is even more sadistic, and the challenges are far more perilous. It is a pity that this sequel is so underrated, because they really don't make such movies anymore. We wouldn't say the same thing about the Robocop 3. It was a shameless cash grab that totally destroyed the vision of Paul Verhoeven's original movie. But Robocop 2 tried to expand the universe we saw in the first movie, and even though it couldn't surpass the original, it was a really good sequel. Tron Legacy 2010. Tron Legacy could have been a historic movie, but this misunderstood masterpiece did not really strike a chord with the critics. The plot tells the story of a father who designs a virtual world. His son goes in looking for him, but now he must take on the evil creation of his father. He will be helped by another entity that was born in the digital world. The original movie back in the 80s explored the digital world and the possibility of such a bizarre situation where the protagonist would be locked in that world with only some gladiatorial games as a way of getting out. The sequel does not disappoint and keeps the innovative theme intact. The visuals for this movie are a great improvement from its predecessor. The plot continues with the father-son narrative that adds a touch of emotion to the bizarre sequence of events. The soundtrack had a fan following of its own, and it suits the content perfectly. The deeper themes and metaphors are often overlooked in this film, but if you take your time to appreciate the magic of the story, it would take your breath away. A special mention must be made to the jaw-dropping cinematography. Jeff Bridges, Olivia Wilde, and Garrett Hedlund do a great job of their acting. This is a movie that you must experience for the sheer brilliance of it.